The other day I said something that I want to go a little bit deeper with today. Sometimes God brings you out of a storm and then sends you back in to help somebody else find their way out, right? But here's something that we have to be careful about when He does. Don't forget what the dark felt like. Because something can happen after we've been walking in the light for a while. We start looking back at the people who are still struggling and thinking, why don't they just leave? Why do they keep going back? Why can't they let go? Why don't they get some help? Why can't they see what this is doing to them? But friend, let me ask you this. Could you clearly see when you were standing in the middle of it? Because I sure couldn't. There are things I can look back at in my own life today and see so clearly. I can see the warning signs. I can see the bad decisions. I can see places where I should have walked away. I can see things now and think, Misty, how did you not say that? But then I have to remember something. I'm looking at it from the light now. I wasn't standing here then. I was standing there. And everything looks different in the dark. Ephesians 5:8 says, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light. Don't miss those few words. For you were once. Remember, you were once there too. And I think sometimes God wants us to remember, not so we'll live in our past, but so our past will keep our hearts tender towards people who are still struggling. Because when you remember what the darkness felt like, you stop yelling directions from the light. You go get them. You don't stand at the opening shouting, come on, it's right here. Why can't you see it? They can't see what you see. Their eyes haven't adjusted yet. They're scared, confused. Maybe even they're ashamed. Maybe they've been in that darkness so long that they've started believing this is simply what life is supposed to feel like. And that's when God says, I need somebody who remembers. Somebody who remembers the fear. Somebody who remembers the confusion. Somebody who remembers what it was like to pray and wonder whether anything would change. Somebody who remembers taking 2 steps forward and then taking a step backwards. Lord, I'm right there right now. Somebody who remembers wanting freedom and still being terrified of what that freedom would require. Because see, healing isn't always a straight line. Sometimes people go back. Sometimes they make that mistake again and veer off. Sometimes they know something is hurting them and they still aren't ready to release it. Yeah, we've all been there. And if we're not careful, we'll become frustrated with them. But Galatians 6:1 tells us that when someone is caught in something, those who are spiritual should restore them gently. Gently. Not arrogantly. Not impatiently. Not with, I told you so. Gently. Because there may have been a time when someone had to be gentle with you. And maybe that's part of why God's allowed you to remember the road. Not so you can become an expert on somebody else's pain. No. But so you could become more compassionate towards it. There's a difference between saying you need to get out of there and saying, give me your hand. I know it's scary. I've walked this road before. Let's take the next step together. See, that's what happens when your testimony becomes ministry. You stop using your healing as a measuring stick for somebody else's progress. And you start using it as a flashlight. Woo, Lordy, somebody needs to hear that. Your healing is not a measuring stick. It is a flashlight. It's not something you used to say, I made it, why haven't you? It's darkness you carry back, something that you carry back into the darkness and say, here, let me help you see. Because, friend, never let the light God brought into you make you forget what it felt like when you couldn't see. Remember how afraid you were. Remember how confused you were. Remember how many times you almost gave up. Remember the person who sat beside you. Remember the prayer that somebody prayed. Remember the grace somebody gave you when you weren't getting it right yet. And then go be that person for somebody else. Maybe that's why God didn't erase every memory of the darkness. Maybe some of those memories became directions. Maybe some become warning signs. Maybe some become compassion. Maybe some became a map. Because when God says, I'm sending you back in, He isn't sending the person you were. He's sending the person that you have become. You're going back with wisdom, compassion, and with a testimony. And most importantly, you're going back to carry the light. So when you find somebody stumbling through a darkness that you recognize, don't judge them because they can't see yet. Reach out your hand, turn on the light and say, I know it looks dark from where you're standing, but I've been where you are. And I promise you, there is a way out. Until next time, my friends, keep walking in grace. And remember, God's not done writing your story. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.